everyone, and welcome back to the Joy-Filled Universe podcast. I am your host, Lisa Ryan, and today we are going to have an early celebration of that February 14th holiday of love known as Valentine's Day. And do me a little bit of a favor here, and if you can find yourself a mirror and go have a good look at who's staring back at you, or better yet, just wrap your arms around yourself and give yourself a giant hug, because by doing this, you are showing some love to your number one Valentine, which happens to be you. Yeah, you. And I just think that's extra special because I don't think many of us see ourselves as our number one Valentine, but we are, because the fact of the matter is we cannot truly honor and love others if we haven't learned to honor and love ourselves first. And so for today's pod, we are going to talk about self-love and the many things that we can do to cultivate and sustain this really incredible state of being. Because self-love, it really isn't a feeling. Rather, it's more like a pattern of attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors toward ourselves. And it is truly a gift when it comes to both giving and receiving love in our lives. And so, full disclosure here, there was a time in my life when I had been in a relationship that nearly destroyed my spirit, and I will forever be grateful for my family and friends who literally saved me from that entire experience. However, when I was fresh out of that situation, which is probably a couple decades ago now, one of the very last humans I had any interest in being around was myself. I had ended up in a place where I no longer loved who I was. In fact, I had become so distant from myself that even looking in the mirror was rare. And when I did look, I made it more like a glance and rarely even made eye contact with myself. And I will say that without a doubt, this was one of, if not the most saddest periods of my life, because I had literally gone from being the life of the party to being someone who could barely muster up the courage to go to work every day, much less have any kind of social life. And it was during this time I felt completely unlovable and worthy of nothing. There was no number of compliments or messages, hugs or gifts or any other act of kindness for that matter that was going to change how I felt. And so my climb out of that state certainly didn't happen overnight, but over time, I learned to love myself once again. And I personally believe that we all are hardwired for love and joy, and those seeds within us are forever there. And so my self-love, it might have felt like it nearly died, but that seed within me was ready to grow again just as soon as I was ready to cultivate it. And my family and friends might have helped me to leave an unhealthy relationship. However, finding love for myself again, that was all up to me. And I'm telling you all of this because I don't want you to think that today's pod is some pep rally about self-love. It's so easy, because when days like Valentine's Day come up, sometimes we can feel really low because we don't have a special someone, or maybe we do, but we feel very alone in the relationship, or maybe we just broke up or lost our perfect partner, or maybe we are blissfully in love yet have a smidge of uncertainty because our love for ourselves is lacking. So regardless of how we feel when it comes to love for others, whether it's romantic, family, or friends, whatever, our true love starts with self-love. And so whether you love yourself a lot or you love yourself a little, today's episode is for you. And before we dive in, I just want to say that self-love isn't about thinking we are better than anyone else. It's about no longer believing that we are less. Because when we love ourselves, we don't need to prove anything to anyone but ourselves. And so today I wanted to share my adventure back to self-love. So I'm going to talk through some of the big foundational pillars that I created for myself over the years. And they have all helped and they continue to help me live a really loving and full life. And I call them pillars because, like I said, I still lean on them today. They are the tools and the practices that I have made a really big part of my life. And I didn't really organically just dream up these pillars myself. Rather, I discovered them, like I do many of the things that I implement in my life, through reading books and articles and watching YouTubes and listening to audiobooks and just continuously educating myself. And some of the thought leaders who have helped me along my journey, which I'm totally happy to mention here, include, in no particular order, Rhonda Byrne, Bob Proctor, Napoleon Hill, Brene Brown, Jay Shetty, Florence Stovall Shin, James Clear, Michael Singer, Deepak Chopra, Louise Hay, and you know what? There's a ton more, and I'm sure I'm not remembering all of them, but in the moment, those are the ones that are coming to me. So yeah, there are just some really talented and influential folks out there, and I'm just so grateful for them. Okay, so let's get into this. And I thought about doing this in like a timeline, but honestly, after I really started getting into like a feel good state of life, I kind of lost track of like what the order was. And that actually doesn't even really matter here. What matters is that hopefully some of these will help you too, regardless of where you are on your self-love journey. So I'm just going to hit play here. Ready? Let's go. So my first pillar that I want to share has everything to do with awareness of our feeling state. When I was going through it, I had become fully well aware of the fact that I was in a bad place. And not only was I aware of this place, but I knew I wanted to be in a better feeling state. So I had the desire to feel better. And to get there, I had to change the way I was living. And that was when I learned about the power of developing habits, routines, and environments that support us living our best lives, both today and for our future selves. And now I love goals. And I also appreciate New Year's resolutions and the start of like the calendar year, that big ta-da, or even if we choose to make our New Year's resolutions on our birthdays. We can all get really excited about all of the goals and the plans, and we feel super, super motivated. But you know what? Motivation can fade, and it fades rather quickly. And if we can believe it, most people quit their resolutions by the end of January, and only about like 8 or 9% actually keep their resolutions for an entire year. However, habits, on the other hand, and the routines and the environments that we can create, they have a tendency to keep going. So I started to create habits and routines that supported me. And one way I did this was I removed resistance from good habits so that they would be easy for me to develop. And some examples of that are, I wanted to eat healthier, so I bought healthier food and I kept my cupboards free of unhealthy food. I wanted to work out at a gym, so I found a facility that was close to my home. And I also found a friend who belonged to this gym as well. So this way I wouldn't have an excuse, right, to say that the gym was too far away. And when I felt a little bit lazy, my friend would give me like that healthy pressure to go get dressed and let's go. Another thing is I wanted to journal more because it helped me with visualizing, and it served as a form of like decluttering my mind. So I cleared a space in my home and I made it into like this welcoming and creative space that I would want to retreat to write. So these are just a few examples of like super easy ways to anchor ourselves into good habits. And these good habits are created when we structure them with discipline. So for this pillar, ask yourself, what is a good habit that we can create today that can serve us now as well as our future selves. And if you're stuck here, here's like a few examples that might help you. Do we want to meditate? Do we want to eat healthy? Do we want to read more books, drink more water, get to work earlier, ride our bikes, cook meals at home and eat out less, walk our fur baby more than 1 to 2 times a day, attend HOA meetings, volunteer at a local animal shelter? Figure out what it is and then figure out a way to remove any resistance from making this habit happen for you easily. Okay, pillar number 2 is I developed a sense of identity, a sense of who I was. And this is something that I use all the way up to today with myself and with people that I coach and mentor. And so very recently, I was working with someone and they had said that they wanted to do something different in their career. So I said, "Oh, great. What is it that you'd like to do?" And they said, "Well, anything, what do you think I would be good at? You know me. What do you think?" And I found this was like a really human response. And I thought about like that famous interview question that many of us have probably encountered at 1 or 2 times in our life at least. And that goes like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I personally think that is truly a difficult question to answer. And with this thought, like I pulled the thread, and with 4 more people that I was coaching routinely, I had asked each and every one of them. I asked them, if you could do something else in your career, what would it be? And it was incredible because every one of them eventually said, "I'm not sure." And then they looked to me to give them my opinion, which is something that we all can tend to do. We wait for people to help to define us for us. So the approach I took with all of my clients, which is the same approach I use on myself when like manifesting anything in my life that I'm not really clear about, meaning I don't really know all of the details. And so I said to my clients, rather than defining what you want, let's define the feeling state that we want to have. Or better said, let's ask ourselves, what do I want to feel? And who do I want to become? And more times than none, the end result is to be successful in whatever or whoever we are creating. So to do this, we have to feel successful along our journey. And that sometimes means feeling successful when we fail over and over and over again, and appreciating all of the knowledge that comes from every failure, knowing that we are continuously getting smarter with every try. Feeling successful is doing great work even when no one rewards or recognizes us, because it is our feeling of success that matters most. Feeling successful is knowing what feels in alignment with our true self and being okay to walk away from what isn't in alignment for us. Feeling successful is knowing that everything is working out for us and coming to us in divine timing. Feeling successful is growing into our future selves versus allowing ourselves to be defined by our past. And feeling successful is having the courage to take inspired action. So don't beat yourself up if you aren't sure of what it is that you want in life. Rather, focus on how you want to feel. And by doing this, we will attract the circumstances, opportunities, and environments that will allow for our desired feeling state to become our norm. Okay, pillar number 3, I breathed life back into something that I had once loved, a skill that I had but had abandoned, and that was running. So I put some discipline around it and I got back into running. And I joined the gym that was at my place of work. And every night I packed my gym clothes and I would take them with me to work the next day so that after work, I would drop down to the gym and I would run on the treadmill. Initially, I was super slow. And to keep myself from getting discouraged, Nike at the time had like shoes that had like this sensor in the sole, and that sensor was synced to an application, and I tracked my speed and distance. So I saw myself getting faster and stronger. And the more I ran, the faster I became. So the longer the distance I would go. And eventually people at the gym, they like started saying things to me like, you had a good run today, or holy smokes, that was like, you were running fast, or you're really a good runner. And these compliments were so supportive for me because people were saying what I was personally feeling. And that was truly one of the first times I actually accepted compliments rather than explaining them away because I knew that they were true. And from there, I started running outside more. And then I signed up for a half marathon with my friends, and I'll never forget it. My first race was a Run Disney race, and 4 of my girlfriends went with me. And I ran that race in 1 hour and 45 minutes. And I personally thought that that was a really great time, and I still do. I loved that race. So by committing to running and building discipline around it, it truly changed my entire self-perception. So perhaps try developing a new skill because it is life-changing. As a matter of fact, research shows that learning new skills lowers risk of cognitive decline and dementia later in life. It keeps our minds younger regardless of our age. It improves self-confidence because our belief that we can figure things out is made stronger. We shift from thinking, this is who I have always been, into I'm someone who is growing. And like James Clear has said, skills stack. Each new skill makes the next one easier to learn, and we create an upward spiral of growth and adaptability. And a new skill can be anything. It can be public speaking, financial investing, learning a new instrument, spirituality and mindfulness, a coaching discipline, knitting and crocheting, cooking, bike riding, yoga, and even a new language. All of these can be transformational, and they can also serve as a launching pad into more exciting skills and activities too. All right. I think this is pillar number 4. I should have numbered these. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, pillar number 4. This one has everything to do with saying yes, most especially saying yes to things that feel scary. You know, when I was in Disney World once, I went on a backstage tour, and it was then that I learned about this artistic trick called force perspective. And that's largely when something looks really big, yet when we walk up to it, it's actually quite small. And they do this like at Cinderella's castle for like the height, but they also do it, or actually they did it once upon a time at Hollywood Studios when they had what was called like the Streets of America. And in one section, you would like walk down a New York City street mock-up. However, when you got like right up next to the painted set, the buildings that once looked like skyscrapers were actually like about my height or even smaller. It was incredible. And I believe that this is exactly the way our fears show up. When we are looking at our fear from a distance and thinking about it, it feels terrifying and insurmountable. And we tend to like think of all the reasons why it's a bad idea. However, when we face our fears, when we walk right up to them, they tend to get smaller. And when we push through our fears, many times they actually dissolve, which makes me think of when I was like a little girl, when I would be like with my dad at the swimming pool, and he would be in the pool and he would have his arms like stretched out and he'd be like, come on, Lisa, jump, I'll catch you. And I would just be like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. And I would be like jogging in place at the edge of the pool. I was just so nervous. Yet when I finally walked up to the edge and I took that leap, I just felt like I did it. And then that would just be like the end for my poor dad, because he soon became like super waterlogged, because for the rest of the day, I would just be like jumping in, I'd swim to the edge, I'd climb up the ladder, and I'd jump in again for hours. And then just like my poor dad, but he was such a trooper, and it was such a great way to just overcome a fear. And something that is just so unfortunate for many, many people is that most of the things that we don't do in life is because we are afraid. Many of the reasons why we stay stuck in life is also because we are afraid. We are afraid that people won't like us. We're afraid that we won't be accepted. People will think that we're weak, afraid that we might fail, afraid someone will say no when we wanted a yes, afraid to apply for a job because we might not get it, afraid to ask for a raise because someone won't think that we're worth it, or afraid to like tell that special person that we like them because we're afraid that they might not like us back. Fears will hold us back, but they don't have to. And they especially don't have to when we know that the universe is on our side. They don't have to when we know that we are right where we are supposed to be. And especially when we know that something might feel terrifying, but it also feels aligned and exciting at the same time. So do yourself a favor and start saying yes. Don't say yes when I have X, Y, and Z figured out, or yes when I get to the next pay bracket, or yes whenever ... No, just say yes and face your fears, because I can assure you, from a distance, they seem big and spark a lot of anxiety within us. But up close, I bet you'll be able to step right over them, or even push right through them. So for this pillar, ask yourself, what have you pushed off that you could say yes to today? And then do it. Say yes and enjoy the adventure that is ahead of you. All right. The next pillar, let go of relationships that have expired and no longer serve us. There were people that I thought were my friends when my very difficult relationship had fallen apart. Yet oddly enough, they turned on me and chose to no longer be my friends. And this made me sad for quite some time, because I am a really loyal friend, and I would send a card every now and again or entertain sending an email, and the torture I was putting myself through was so unnecessary. And I realized this when I really started to relearn that I am a really great person, and it's okay if they didn't want to be friends. I learned not to take it personally, and most importantly, I let them go. And even today, many years later, when someone brings up like an old random story from the past that might include one of these people that I had released, I politely decline to engage in that conversation, and in my heart I say, I'm thankful that they were a season in my life, and I wish them well, and I remain blissfully unfazed. So think about relationships that might feel like a drain on you, or feel negative or exhausting, and give yourself permission to let that relationship go. And on the flip side, I made time to reinforce the relationships with my real friends, the ones that I had made in the past, along with those that I was newly establishing along my journey. And I still do this today. I schedule phone dates with friends who live far away, and I make it a point to connect with friends who are nearby. And sometimes when life gets busy, guess what? I schedule phone dates with the people who live nearby too, because relationships, just like everything else we are discussing today, requires discipline. It is so important to have solid connections because they truly support our quality of life. The people we choose to give us energy. And when we are choosing to be around those who give us good energy, our quality of life becomes multiplied. Because loneliness is a modern epidemic. Loneliness is about feeling unseen, unheard, disconnected, undervalued, and we can feel this way even when we are surrounded by people. And things like digital connection, whether it be text messaging, DM, scrolling, comparison overload, none of these will replace the need that our nervous system has for eye contact, touch, human presence, and genuine human exchange. And so if you don't already do this, make time to start connecting with other humans. And we can do this by cultivating the current relationships that we have, joining community groups, joining a church, or becoming a member of like a community club or a country club. There are just endless things that we can do to connect ourselves with quality humans that provide us with like that energy that we need to feel seen and heard and valued and connected because we matter to each other. So something we can do here is perhaps just ask ourselves, who do we need to connect with more, and who do we need to distance ourselves from? And with those answers over time, apply some discipline to act on them, because eventually we will find ourselves with human connections that help us to thrive versus human connections that drain us and hold us back. All right, I think this is the last pillar number 6. And this one involved me pulling the thread on a skill that I had cultivated, which was running. And I started a run club. This was a handful of years ago, but I started a run club, and it was like every Monday at 4:45 p.m. I met a group of people to go for a run. And what was incredible about this group was that it ranged usually from like an attendance of 10 to 25 people, and they were all varying skill sets. And the main goal with every run was that we started and we finished together. And we did this every Monday for about 2 years. We did this run club. And even in the winter, in the rain, we were out there, and we were out there together. And there was just so much good that came from this experience. The uplifting and supportive community, the fact that everyone was developing great exercise habits, and personally, the act of teaching and motivating people to run gave me such a significant sense of purpose. I realized how talented I had become with running. I realized how fortunate I was to have the endurance to run the distance, and the joy I felt when we all high-fived each other at the end of every run made my heart sing. So by doing something that serves others through the use of skills and talents that we have significantly boosts our sense of purpose. So for this pillar, perform an act of service. It can really raise our vibe. And the bonus here is that it raises someone else's too in the process. And so there we have it. And I want to reiterate something really quick too. All of these pillars and the efforts that go along with them, they all evolved for me over time. And they have now largely become a way of life for me, which continuously just stokes my internal fire of self-love. And I'm sure that some of these feel a little overwhelming. However, none of these things will happen if we don't commit to taking the first step, whether it's awareness that leads to habits with discipline, establishing a sense of identity, developing skills, facing our fears, cultivating connections, or acts of service. All of them will take time. So allow yourself grace to evolve and expand, because none of these is a one and done. All of this is who we are becoming. And from these pillars, we build our sense of purpose, our inner strength, our connections with self and others, and most importantly, we cultivate and grow the love and respect that we have for ourselves. Because the more we love ourselves, the more we allow others to love us as we are meant to be loved. And that is a ginormous wrap for this Valentine's episode this week. Some of my life pillars that have brought me to where I am today, and I am so grateful for them. And what I love is that we can be in the best place of our lives or the not so best place of our lives, yet it is always a good time to try one or some or all of these life-changing activities. So I hope that you choose to give it a go. And with that, I am going to be sending all of you love and happy wishes for a self-loving Valentine's Day this week. And I hope that you all enjoyed this episode and found it to be helpful. And if you did, please share it with your friends, rate, follow, leave a review, take a picture of the podcast and share it on your social media. All of this is super helpful, and I am always extra grateful for your support. And on that note, I am your host, Lisa Ryan. This is the Joy-Filled Universe podcast, where we explore all the tools and tricks that are going to make your universe even more joyful than it already is. And I will see you next week. Bye.